Well, in 2018, a trans teenager, 16-year-old, he committed suicide, and he left a letter where he was aiming, that with this decision he could make it easier for the ones coming after him. I think it's important to remember that at least in the Basque Country and in the Spanish state as well, but in 2018 there wasn't a debate on that topic at all. Those subjects, those minors, trans minors, were completely invisible to society. So I think that sadly he really made his goal, because after his death, TV shows, TV programs, newspapers, magazines in the Basque Country started inviting families that were going through this process with their kids. So they started sharing their life experiences in a very generous way, and the debate started there. And I think that we have arrived to a moment, at least in Spain this year, the first trans law has been approved, the very same week where my film was being premiered here in Berlin. Cinema can be also a tool in this conversation process, social and process, to be the window, I mean, that the bridge to the characters, because I think that it can often become a topic of political debate, but cinema, what can really bring to this conversation is the possibility of generating empathy with the characters and feeling that this topic is about people, real people. They are not just ideas, no? And I think that the film has come in a very good moment. Well, I wouldn't say that it's light for Coco, because she is really suffering and bearing great violence in the limitations the environment are setting to her. But you know, when you are kids, you for a while you think that that should be like that, but it's a great pressure and violence that we are executing on the kids without being aware sometimes, no? Because this is what happens also to the mother. And I wanted to visibilize these violent situations that we adults don't perceive. The majority of those narratives are explicitly focusing on the conflictive, on how these characters suffer for the siblings, for people around. And one thing that I learned, thanks to all these families that I had the chance of interviewing, that shared with me their intimacies, their lives, was that in many cases this process had led them to a better place, had led them to a situation where the communication between the members of the family is much better now than before. The way they hear each other, the way also these mothers and fathers wonder themselves how limited by the gender system they had also been, and how they become also a result of this violence but silent system. So going through this process has brought light in many files in these families that therefore strengthen their bonds. And this is something really positive and new in terms of the narrative we make around the trans people. And I wanted to bring this idea to the film, because the families really lived it like that. It was very common in these interviews to hear mothers that were perhaps in a moment of the process being told that everything, all the fault was because the kids were completely surrounded by women, you know. But even if these kids often have brothers that are not identifying themselves as girls. Well, no, but for me it was finally it was like an investigation for myself also about what does being a woman mean. What is a woman? Because we often deny trans girls because they are very young and they cannot know who they really are, because this is such a complex issue, identity, they are not mature enough, as if we adults knew what being a woman means. And so I took the opportunity to explore around this question, gathering many different women from different generations also, because I think that there is no a woman, there are many women, and the experience of being a woman is also a cross experience with many other instances, as race, social class, religion, territory, nationality, time in history. So gathering all these women allowed me to explore this difference and multiplicity of women voices.